The day Earth went silent. Part 1 Commander Zethkar stared at the display screen with growing concern. The blue and green planet called Earth had always been noisy. For 300 years since humans first joined the galactic community, their world buzzed with constant communication. Radio waves, quantum signals, digital transmissions, Earth never stopped talking. Now it was silent. "Run the scan again," Zethkar ordered his communications officer. The tall, gray-skinned Zephyrian had worked with humans for decades. He knew their patterns better than most aliens in the galaxy. "Same result, Commander," the officer replied, his forearms dancing across the control panel. "Nothing. No signals from Earth for the past 12 hours. The entire Sol system has gone dark." Zethkar's stomach twisted. In all his years of service, he had never seen anything like this. Humans were loud, chaotic, and never stopped broadcasting. They sent messages about everything. Weather reports, entertainment shows, personal communications, military updates. The sudden silence felt wrong, like hearing a song stop in the middle of a note. "Contact the Galactic Council immediately," Zethkar commanded. Priority Alpha. Within hours, the news spread across 17 different worlds. Species that had barely spoken to each other in decades suddenly found themselves in emergency meetings. The ethereal collective, ancient beings of pure energy, flickered with worry. The mechanical synthesis rushed calculations through their quantum brains. Even the war-loving Korthax Empire paused their usual raiding to listen to the reports. High Chancellor Morden of the Zephyrian Council called an emergency session. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered in the Great Crystal Chamber on Zephyr Prime. The room buzzed with worried voices speaking in dozens of languages. "Friends," Morden began, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "We face something we have never seen before. Earth, the human homeworld, has fallen silent. Our monitoring stations detect no communications, no signals, nothing." A ripple of concern passed through the assembled delegates. Humans might be young compared to other galactic species, but they had become important trading partners and allies. Their creativity and stubbornness had proven useful in many situations. "What could cause this?" asked Ambassador Veltara of the Aquatic Union, her gills fluttering with anxiety. "Natural disaster? Solar flare? Our scientists have considered every possibility," replied Dr. Zenoth, the galaxy's leading expert on younger species. The elderly academic floated in his containment field, ancient eyes sad behind protective lenses. "Based on patterns we have observed in other developing civilizations, the most likely explanation is extinction." The word hit the chamber like a physical blow. Several delegates gasped. Others began rapid conversations in their native languages. "Extinction?" Chancellor Morden's voice cracked slightly. "Are you certain?" Dr. Zenoth nodded gravely. "I have studied 47 different species that reached space travel capabilities. Of those, 31 eventually destroyed themselves. The pattern is always the same: rapid technological advancement followed by social collapse. Humans showed many warning signs. Their planet was warming, they had nuclear weapons. Social unrest was growing. The sudden communication silence suggests they may have finally reached their breaking point." Ambassador Crix of the Korthax Empire leaned forward, his scarred face showing interest rather than sadness. "If the humans are gone, what happens to their territory? The Sol system has valuable mining opportunities. There are colonies on Mars and the outer moons. How can you think about profit at a time like this?" snapped General Thane of the Crystal Dominion. "The humans were our friends." "We're being the important word," Crix replied coldly. "Dead species do not need star systems." The argument that followed grew heated quickly. Species that had remained neutral for centuries suddenly took sides. The ethereal collective spoke of the tragedy of losing such a young, vibrant culture. The synthesis calculated the economic impact of human trade routes disappearing. The Void Hunters, mysterious beings from the dark spaces between stars, said nothing but watched everything with glowing eyes. Chancellor Morden called for order. "Before we discuss anything else, we must confirm what has happened. I propose sending an investigation fleet to Sol system." "I volunteer my ships," said Admiral Jextar of the Zephyrian fleet. "Humans were our closest allies among the younger species. We owe it to them to learn the truth." "The Aquatic Union will provide scientific vessels," added Ambassador Veltara. "The synthesis offers analytical support," declared Unit Prime, their collective consciousness speaking through mechanical vocal cords. Even some unexpected species volunteered. The Crystal Dominion, usually focused only on their own crystalline worlds, offered their most advanced sensors. The ethereal collective promised to share their ancient wisdom about species extinction. Only the Korthax Empire remained focused on territorial claims. "We demand representation in any investigation," Ambassador Crick stated. "If the humans are truly gone, the Empire has rights to consider expansion into their former space." "Rights?" Admiral Jextar's scales shifted color with anger. "You speak of rights while our friends may be dead?" "Business is business," Crix replied without emotion. "Sentiment does not change galactic law." The debate continued for hours. Some species genuinely mourned humanity's apparent loss. Others saw opportunity. A few worried about what could have caused such a complete and sudden extinction. Dr. Zenith shared his research on failed civilizations. "Usually we see warning signs for decades before the final collapse. Wars, environmental damage, social breakdown. But humans seem to be managing their problems better than most species. Their technology was advancing rapidly. Their colonies were thriving. This sudden silence is unusual. Perhaps that is exactly why they failed," suggested Elder Mist of the Void Hunters. Speaking for the first time, the shadowy being's words seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Sometimes the brightest flames burn out the fastest." As the meeting continued, monitoring stations across the galaxy maintained their watch on Sol system. Every few hours they swept the area with powerful sensors, hoping to detect some sign of human activity. Each scan came back the same. Nothing. The silence from Earth grew more disturbing with each passing hour. It was not just the absence of communication. It was the absence of everything humans typically did. No ship movements between their colonies. No energy signatures from their cities. No signs of the millions of daily activities that made human civilization so distinctive. "It is as if they simply vanished," reported Chief Monitor Galvin from the listening post nearest to Sol system. "Not destroyed, vanished." This detail made some species even more worried. A war or natural disaster would leave traces. Nuclear explosions, debris fields, radiation signatures, something would remain. But this complete disappearance suggested something far worse. The ethereal collective began composing what they called the Song of Ended Dreams, a memorial for humanity. Their energy forms pulsed with sad colors as they remembered human art, music and literature that would now never develop further. Meanwhile, the Korthax Empire quietly began moving scout ships toward the edges of human space. They called it boundary patrol, but everyone knew they were positioning themselves to claim territory once the investigation confirmed human extinction. As the galactic day ended, representatives returned to their ships and worlds carrying heavy news. Across the galaxy, beings who had known humans personally struggled with grief. Traders who had worked with human merchants wondered what would happen to their businesses. Military officers who had served alongside human crews felt a strange emptiness. But perhaps most disturbing of all was the reaction of the galaxy's oldest species. The Eternal Wardens, being so ancient they remembered the galaxy's first civilizations, sent a simple message to the Galactic Council. "We felt this coming. The young fire has gone out too soon. Something is not right about this silence." Their words carried weight that made everyone uncomfortable. If the Eternal Wardens sensed something wrong, the situation might be far more serious than simple species extinction. The investigation fleet would launch at dawn. Until then, the galaxy waited in worried silence, wondering what had happened to the noisy, chaotic, impossible humans who had somehow made themselves essential to galactic civilization in just 3 centuries. Earth remained silent, and with each passing hour that silence grew more ominous. The joint investigation fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system 3 days later. Admiral Jextar commanded the mission from his flagship, surrounded by vessels from 5 different species. Zephyrian science ships worked alongside Aquatic Union research vessels. Crystal Dominion sensor arrays operated next to synthesis analytical platforms. Even the mysterious Void Hunters had sent a single dark ship that seemed to absorb light around it. "Initial scans beginning now," reported Chief Science Officer Nelvara from the main sensor station. Her tentacles moved across the controls with practiced precision, reading. "This cannot be correct. What are you detecting?" Admiral Jextar asked, moving closer to the display screens. "Sir, the system appears completely normal. All planets are in their proper orbits. No debris fields, no radiation signatures indicating warfare or disaster. But Nelvara paused, her color shifting to confused purple. There are no life signs anywhere in the system. Dr. Zenoth, who had joined the expedition to study the Extinction event, leaned over the data readings. "Show me Earth specifically." The main screen focused on the blue and green world that had been humanity's home for thousands of years. From space, it looked exactly as it always had, white clouds swirling over brown continents and blue oceans. City lights were still visible on the night side of the planet. "Impossible," whispered Captain Morketh of the Crystal Dominion vessel. "The cities still have power?" "Confirmed," replied the synthesis unit managing the analytical station. "Energy readings indicate normal power grid function across all major human population centers. Atmospheric composition remains within normal parameters for human life support. Weather patterns show no signs of global catastrophe." Admiral Jextar studied the readings with growing confusion. If the cities still have power, where are the people? The fleet moved closer to Earth, every sensor focused on the planet below. What they found made no sense. The great human cities of New York, London, Tokyo, and New Geneva showed clear signs of recent habitation but no current life. Streets were empty but clean. Buildings stood intact with lights still burning in many windows. Parks and gardens remained maintained by automated systems. "Take us to the orbital stations," Admiral Jextar ordered. The investigation ships approached Earth's network of space stations and orbital platforms. These massive structures had served as humanity's gateway to the stars for centuries. Trading posts, manufacturing facilities, military bases, all appeared fully functional but completely abandoned. Captain Veliron of the Aquatic Union's research vessel sent a boarding party to Station Alpha Prime, humanity's largest orbital facility. The team moved through corridors that hummed with working machinery and glowed with active lighting systems. Computer terminals showed normal operating status. Environmental systems maintained perfect atmosphere and temperature. But no humans were anywhere to be found. "It is as if they all simply walked away," reported the boarding team leader. "There are no signs of struggle, no damage, no bodies. Personal belongings remain in quarters. Food is still in storage areas, much of it fresh. Whatever happened here occurred very recently." The fleet expanded its search to include the moon colonies. Luna Base, humanity's first permanent off-world settlement, presented the same mystery. The vast underground cities carved into lunar rock showed every sign of recent habitation, but no current occupants. Mining operations had stopped mid-cycle. Living areas contained personal items, clothing, even meals that appeared to have been abandoned mid-consumption. "This is beginning to disturb me greatly," Admiral Jextar confided to Dr. Zenoth as they reviewed the findings. "In all your studies of failed civilizations, have you ever seen anything like this?" The ancient scientist's containment field flickered with uncertainty. "Never. Species die through war, disease, environmental collapse, or social breakdown. They do not simply vanish while leaving their entire infrastructure intact and operational." The investigation expanded to Mars next. The red planet hosted humanity's second-largest colony network, built into the canyon walls and underground chambers. The massive terraforming projects were still running. Atmospheric processors continued their slow work of making Mars more Earth-like. Agricultural domes maintained perfect growing conditions for human food crops. But like everywhere else, no humans remained. Commander Zix of the Void Hunters broke radio silence for the first time since the mission began. "There are patterns here that suggest coordination rather than catastrophe." "Explain," Admiral Jextar requested. The abandonment was organized. Systems were left running deliberately. Perishable goods were secured. Long-term projects were put into maintenance modes. This was not panic or sudden disaster. This was planned evacuation. Dr. Zenoth considered this observation. "But evacuation to where?" "Our sensors detect no human ships in the system. No other habitable worlds in Sol system could support their entire population." The investigation teams continued their work, uncovering more mysteries. Human defensive satellites were still active and responded to the approaching alien ships with warning signals, though they did not fire. Automated mining operations continued in the asteroid belt. Deep space communication arrays remained functional, but transmitted only maintenance signals. Most disturbing of all, the investigators found evidence of massive ship movements in the days before the silence began. Launch pads on Earth, the Moon, and Mars showed signs of heavy use. Orbital shipyards had empty berths where large vessels should have been docked. Fuel reserves were significantly depleted. They took their ships, realized Captain Morketh. All of them. That would require thousands of vessels to evacuate their entire population, Nelvara calculated quickly. Our intelligence estimates suggest humans had perhaps 200 major ships capable of long-range travel. Unit Prime of the synthesis processed this information rapidly. Calculation error detected in intelligence estimates. Evidence suggests human shipbuilding capacity was significantly underreported. This revelation sent uncomfortable ripples through the investigation fleet. If humans had been building ships in secret, what else might they have been hiding? The search expanded to the outer system. Jupiter's moons had hosted human research stations and fuel production facilities. Like everything else, they were abandoned but operational. The gas giants' massive industrial platforms continued harvesting atmospheric gases for starship fuel. Robotic systems maintained perfect efficiency without human oversight. Admiral Jextar called a conference aboard his flagship. Representatives from all 5 species gathered in the main briefing chamber to discuss their findings. "We face something unprecedented," he began. "An entire species has vanished without explanation. Their world remains habitable. Their technology functions perfectly. But 8 billion humans have simply disappeared. The evidence suggests voluntary departure," observed the Void Hunter commander. "But departure to where?" Dr. Zenoth projected galactic maps showing human exploration routes. Based on our knowledge of human space travel capabilities, they could not have gone far. Our long-range sensors would detect any fleet large enough to carry their entire population. "Unless they went somewhere we are not looking," suggested Captain Veliron. "Where would that be?" Admiral Jexitar asked. The Void Hunter's response chilled everyone present. The dark spaces between stars. The empty regions where even we do not venture. This possibility had not occurred to anyone. Most galactic species avoided the vast empty regions between star systems. There was nothing there but cold vacuum and occasional rogue planets. No resources, no strategic value, no reason to explore such areas. But why would they go to empty space? Nelvara wondered aloud. What could drive an entire species to abandon their homes for the void? The answer came from an unexpected source. While searching through human databases, the synthesis unit discovered encrypted files that had been overlooked. The encryption was sophisticated, but mechanical minds eventually cracked human codes. The files contained references to something called the Long Dark Protocol and Exodus Prime. Most of the information was heavily coded, but fragments painted a disturbing picture. Humans had been monitoring something beyond their normal space, something that had worried them enough to plan the evacuation of their entire civilization. "Admiral," Unit Prime reported, "we have discovered evidence of human deep space monitoring projects that were not reported to the Galactic Council. They had been observing regions far beyond known exploration boundaries." Observing what? Unknown. But these files suggest they detected something that prompted massive defensive preparations. The evacuation appears to have been the final stage of a plan years in the making. Admiral Jexitar felt a chill that had nothing to do with ship temperature controls. "Send a priority message to the Galactic Council. Tell them we need to expand our investigation, and request that all species share any information about human activities in recent years, especially anything related to deep space exploration." As the investigation fleet prepared to search the outer edges of the system, each team member wondered what humans had seen in the dark that scared them enough to abandon their homes. The galaxy suddenly felt much larger and more dangerous than it had a week ago. Earth continued its silent orbit around Sol Deep in the Zephyrian Intelligence Archive. Senior analyst Kethmore worked through the night reviewing decades of human communication intercepts. The Galactic Council's urgent request for any unusual human activity had triggered searches across every species' intelligence networks. What they were finding painted a picture that made no one comfortable. "Administrator," Kethmore called to his supervisor, "you need to see this." Administrator Velkoth hurried over to the analysis station. "What have you discovered?" "Human deep space observation projects going back 23 years, Kethmore replied, highlighting data on his screen. "They built monitoring stations in systems we did not even know they had explored. Look at these locations." The star map showed human observation posts scattered throughout regions no galactic species had bothered to survey. Cold, empty systems with nothing valuable. Systems so far from normal trade routes that most species never went near them. Why would they build expensive monitoring equipment in empty space? Velkoth wondered. That is not the strangest part, Kethmore continued. Cross-reference these dates with human military production reports. The data comparison revealed something shocking. Human military shipbuilding had increased by 400% over the past 2 decades, but the ships never appeared in their reported fleet strengths. Either humans were lying about their military capacity, or they were hiding thousands of vessels somewhere. Similar discoveries were happening across the galaxy. The Crystal Dominion found records of human purchases for exotic materials with no apparent purpose. The Aquatic Union discovered humans had been buying massive quantities of long-term food preservation systems. The synthesis detected hidden human manufacturing facilities and asteroid fields throughout their territory. Most disturbing of all, the Void Hunters shared intelligence they rarely revealed to anyone. Their scouts had detected unknown ship movements in the empty regions between spiral arms, but they had assumed the signatures belonged to natural phenomena. Now they realized those movements might have been human ships traveling to destinations no one else knew about. Admiral Jextar received these reports while his investigation fleet searched the outer edges of Sol System. The evidence suggested something incredible. Humans had been planning their disappearance for decades. Dr. Zenoth, he called the scientist to the command center. Based on this new intelligence, do you still believe humans suffered extinction? The ancient academic studied the incoming data feeds with growing amazement. Admiral, I have studied civilizations for 800 years. I have never seen anything like this. This is not extinction. This is the most elaborate evacuation in galactic history. Captain Morketh joined the discussion. But evacuation from what? What could threaten humans that they did not warn the rest of us about? The answer came from an unexpected source. The Eternal Wardens, the galaxy's oldest known species, sent a message through channels that had not been used in millennia. The ancient beings rarely communicated with younger species, considering most galactic affairs beneath their notice. The young fire speakers saw what others did not, the message began. They watched the dark between galaxies while others counted coins and territory. They prepared while others debated. The silence you fear is not death. It is readiness. Admiral Jexitar stared at the message translation with growing unease. Fire speakers? Human term for themselves, Dr. Zenoth explained. Early human cultures believed they were the only species to master fire. The Eternal Wardens apparently adopted this reference. And what did they mean about watching the dark between galaxies? Before anyone could answer, Unit Prime of the Synthesis announced a discovery that changed everything. Admiral, we have detected something at the edge of sensor range. Direction, Galactic Rim, bearing 27 Mark 6. What kind of something? Unknown. The signature is unlike anything in our databases. It appears to be artificial but not matching any known technology. The investigation fleet changed course immediately, heading toward the mysterious signature. As they approached the galactic edge, their sensors revealed something that should not exist. A human monitoring station, operational and heavily shielded, hidden in the gravity shadow of a rogue planet. Boarding parties prepare for deployment, Admiral Jexitar ordered. But approach carefully. If humans built this station in secret, they might have left surprises for uninvited visitors. The station was unlike any human construction the aliens had seen before, built into the rocky surface of the rogue planet. It was designed for concealment rather than comfort. Massive sensor arrays pointed outward toward empty space beyond the galaxy. Power systems were built for long-term operation without maintenance. And most importantly, the station was still active. The boarding team found automated systems running complex monitoring programs. Computer logs showed the station had been operating for 18 years, constantly scanning regions of space that most species did not even know existed. The data files were partially encrypted, but what the teams could read made their blood run cold. Admiral, reported the boarding team leader, you need to hear this. The transmission crackled with static as it reached the fleet. We are reading computer logs from the monitoring station. The humans were tracking something big moving through the void between galaxies. Moving toward where? Sir, toward us, toward this galaxy. Admiral Jexistar felt the temperature drop around him despite the ship's climate controls. How big? The readings suggest something the size of a small moon, but the mass readings are impossible. It appears to be hollow but incredibly dense. And Admiral, it is not alone. The sensors detected at least 50 similar objects all traveling together. Dr. Zenoth reviewed the translated human data files with growing horror. These objects have been traveling for thousands of years, he realized. The humans calculated their arrival time. They will reach the outer rim of our galaxy in approximately 6 months. The investigation fleet immediately transmitted all findings to the Galactic Council. Within hours, the galaxy's greatest scientific minds were analyzing human data from the secret monitoring station. What they learned made everyone wish humans had shared this information decades ago. The approaching objects were not natural. Their movement patterns were too precise, their formation too organized. They were artificial constructs of some kind, but built on a scale that dwarfed anything any known species had ever created. Worse, they appeared to be slowing down as they approached the galaxy, suggesting they had a destination rather than simply drifting through space. The humans knew this was coming, Chancellor Morden announced to an emergency session of the Galactic Council. They have been preparing for almost a quarter century. While we conducted normal business, they were building the largest evacuation fleet in galactic history. But why did they not warn us? Demanded Ambassador Crix of the Korthax Empire. The answer came from decoded human files that were finally broken by the combined efforts of the galaxy's best encryption experts. The files revealed human attempts to share their discoveries with galactic authorities going back 20 years. Every report had been dismissed as young species paranoia or primitive fear responses to natural phenomena. One particular file contained a recording of human ambassador Sarah Chen speaking to the Galactic Science Council 15 years earlier. "We have detected artificial objects approaching from extragalactic space," her translated voice said. "We believe they represent a potential threat to all civilizations in this galaxy. We request joint investigation and preparation for possible hostile contact." The response from the Science Council at the time had been politely dismissive. "Young species often interpret natural phenomena as threats," the chairman had replied. "We suggest humans focus on developing their own scientific capabilities before making claims about galactic-scale dangers." Similar dismissals appeared in files spanning 2 decades. Humans had tried to warn everyone. When no one listened, they had begun preparing alone. "By the depths," whispered Ambassador Veltara of the Aquatic Union. "We ignored them completely." "The question now," Admiral Jexitar's voice came through the communication system from Sol System, "is what exactly are they preparing for? And where are they now?" The answer to the second question came from the Void Hunters, whose knowledge of the dark spaces between stars surpassed all other species. "We have detected massive fleet movements in the empty quarter," Commander Zix reported. "Thousands of ships, possibly tens of thousands, gathering in regions where even we rarely venture." Gathering for what? Unknown. But based on the approaching objects and human evacuation patterns, we believe they are preparing for the largest military engagement in galactic history. The realization hit the assembled leaders like a physical blow. Humans had not fled in fear. They had evacuated their civilians and gathered their military forces to face a threat the rest of the galaxy had refused to acknowledge. "Send messages on all frequencies," Chancellor Morden ordered. "Contact every human ship, every monitoring station, every hidden base. Tell them the galaxy is ready to listen now. Tell them we want to help." But the response, when it finally came, was not what anyone expected. A simple message appeared. The first attack came without warning at the edge of the Kepler sector, 37 days ahead of human calculations. The synthesis monitoring station Omega-7 simply stopped transmitting during its regular data burst. When rescue ships arrived at the station's coordinates, they found nothing but empty space and metallic debris that did not match any known materials. Admiral Jexitar watched the rescue ships report from his command vessel, now part of the largest joint military fleet in galactic history. Representatives from every major species had gathered their war fleets in the void between galaxies, following coordinates provided by the mysterious human message. "How is this possible?" Dr. Zenoth studied the readings from his scientific station. "Our calculations showed the objects were still months away from reaching the galactic rim." "Human calculations were based on steady approach speed," Unit Prime reported through the Synthesis Fleet Network. "The objects have accelerated significantly upon entering our galaxy's gravitational influence." The truth was worse than anyone had imagined. Long-range sensors now revealed the approaching threat in terrifying detail. What humans had detected as 50 large objects were actually massive carrier ships, each one disgorging thousands of smaller craft as they entered galactic space. The total enemy fleet numbered in the hundreds of thousands. "By the Crystal Throne," breathed Captain Morketh, "what are we looking at?" The enemy ships were unlike anything in galactic databases. Built from materials that absorbed sensor scans, powered by unknown energy sources, and moving in formations that suggested hive mind coordination. Most disturbing of all, the ships showed no signs of life as galactic species understood it. No heat signatures, no biological readings, no communication attempts. "They are machines," Unit Prime announced after extensive analysis. "Artificial constructs designed for a single purpose, the conversion of organic matter into additional machine units." The word that followed Unit Prime's announcement was one that no galactic species wanted to hear. Harvesters. Dr. Zenyoth's ancient memory banks contained references to similar threats from galactic history. "There are legends," he said quietly. "Stories told by the eldest species about machine swarms that consumed entire galaxies. We believed them to be myths, warnings created to encourage cooperation between organic species. Apparently the humans did not consider them myths." Admiral Jextar observed grimly. The enemy fleet spread out as it entered the galaxy, attacking peripheral systems with devastating efficiency. Each assault followed the same pattern: overwhelming force, complete destruction of defensive installations, and systematic harvesting of all organic life and metal resources. Within hours of contact, thriving star systems became empty graveyards. Desperate messages poured in from across the galaxy. The crystalline hegemony reported the loss of 3 mining worlds. The tentacled collective watched helplessly as their outer colonies went silent one by one. Even the mighty Korthax Empire found their warships outmatched by enemies that seemed to adapt to every weapon and tactic within minutes of encountering them. "We need the humans," Chancellor Morden transmitted to the joint fleet from his diplomatic vessel. Their message said they were preparing. "Where are they?" The answer came as enemy forces reached the first major inhabited systems. As machine harvesters descended on the industrial world of Kepler Prime, something unexpected happened. The attacking fleet suddenly found itself under assault from directions that should have been empty space. Ships materialized from the void as if they had been invisible, firing weapons that bent space-time and tore through machine hulls like paper. The attacking formation scattered in confusion as human vessels appeared throughout the battle zone, moving with coordination that suggested decades of practice fighting this exact enemy. "Human fleet elements are engaging the enemy at Kepler Prime," reported the long-range communications officer. "They appear to have been waiting in stealth positions." Admiral Jextar studied the tactical display with amazement. "How long have they been out there?" The question was answered by a direct communication from the human fleet. A voice speaking accented but clear galactic standard came through the communication array. "Galactic Command. This is Admiral Sarah Chen, Human Defense Fleet. We have been in position for 6 months, waiting for confirmation of enemy arrival patterns. Recommend all Allied vessels maintain current positions while we assess enemy capabilities." Admiral Jexatar recognized the name from the old diplomatic files. The same human who had tried to warn the galaxy 20 years ago was now commanding their defense fleet. "Admiral Chen, this is Admiral Jexatar commanding the Joint Galactic Fleet. What are your fleet numbers and capabilities?" "Admiral Jexatar, good to hear a friendly voice. Current human fleet strength is classified, but sufficient for our mission. We have been studying these enemies for 25 years. We know their weaknesses. The battle at Kepler Prime revealed the true scope of human preparation. Ship after ship decloaked from positions throughout the system, revealing a fleet that dwarfed anything the galaxy had imagined humans possessed. Vessels built with technologies no other species recognized, armed with weapons that seemed to violate known physics, and operated by crews who fought with the precision of people who had trained for this exact scenario their entire lives. But most impressive was human tactics. While other species tried to fight the machine swarms using traditional military doctrine, humans employed strategies that seemed insane until they worked. They used small ships to lure enemy formations into trap zones where larger vessels waited. They sacrificed entire squadrons to save civilian evacuation ships. Most remarkably, they coordinated their attacks with enemy weaknesses that no other species had detected. How did they learn to fight these things so effectively? Wondered Captain Veliron as her aquatic Union ships watched human forces systematically dismantle an enemy formation. The answer came from decoded human tactical communications. Over the past 20 years, humans had captured several machine scouts that had arrived ahead of the main fleet. They had studied enemy technology, reverse-engineered weapon systems, and developed countermeasures through trial and error. Every human ship was equipped with specialized anti-machine warfare systems. They turned their entire civilization into a military research project, Dr. Zenoth realized. While we conducted normal life, they were preparing for war. The scope of human preparation became clear as more battles erupted across the galaxy. Human ships appeared at every major enemy attack, having anticipated invasion routes through careful analysis of galactic structure. They had built hidden bases in strategic locations, stockpiled resources in concealed depots, and positioned their fleet for maximum defensive coverage. But the enemy adapted quickly. Machine learning systems analyzed human tactics and began developing countermeasures. What had been decisive human victories in early battles became increasingly difficult engagements as the enemy learned. Admiral Chen, Admiral Jexitar transmitted during a brief lull in fighting. "Your forces cannot handle this alone. Our fleets want to help, but we do not know how to fight these enemies effectively." "Admiral, we expected this phase of the war," Chen replied. "Enemy adaptation capabilities were factored into our planning. Transmitting tactical data package now. Your species will need to learn quickly." The data package that arrived contained 25 years of human research on machine warfare, detailed analysis of enemy ship construction, weapon capabilities, shield frequencies, and tactical patterns. More importantly, it included specific countermeasures designed for each galactic species' existing military technology. "They planned for us too," Admiral Jexitar realized as he reviewed tactical recommendations specific to Zephyrian fleet doctrine. Even after we ignored their warnings, they still prepared strategies that incorporated our forces. The revelation was both humbling and inspiring. Humans had spent decades preparing not just to defend themselves, but to defend the entire galaxy that had dismissed their concerns. They had analyzed every major species' military capabilities and developed integration strategies that maximized combined effectiveness. But as the enemy fleet continued to pour into the galaxy, bringing more ships than any human calculation had predicted, it became clear that preparation alone might not be enough. The machine swarms were larger, more adaptable, and more determined than even human paranoia had anticipated. Admiral Chen, Admiral Jexitar transmitted as enemy reinforcements appeared at the edge of sensor range. "What is the next phase of your plan?" The response carried weight that made everyone listen carefully. "Phase 2 begins now, Admiral. We are about to show these machines what happens when they threaten organic life in our galaxy. All human fleets initiate Burning Sky Protocol. Show them why our species never learned to surrender." Across the galaxy, human ships began broadcasting a signal that other species' equipment could not decode. But whatever the message contained, it triggered a response that made even the ancient Eternal Wardens take notice. The real war was about to begin. The Burning Sky Protocol began with something no galactic species expected. Earth came alive. The planet that had been silent for months suddenly blazed with activity. Massive defense platforms rose from concealed positions in the oceans and underground installations. The moon revealed itself to be not just a natural satellite, but a heavily fortified military base, its surface opening to expose weapon systems that dwarfed anything in the galactic arsenal. But most shocking of all, Earth itself began to move. "Impossible," breathed Dr. Zenoth as his sensors registered readings that made no scientific sense. "Planets cannot change orbit." "Human planets can, apparently," Admiral Jexitar replied, watching in amazement as Earth slowly altered its course through the Sol system. "They have been modifying their homeworld for decades." The truth was even more incredible than it appeared. Humans had spent 25 years secretly installing massive gravitational manipulation systems throughout their solar system. Sol itself had been modified with stellar engineering technology that allowed controlled solar flares directed at specific targets. The asteroid belt had been converted into a mobile weapons platform capable of launching projectiles at near light speed. Admiral Chen's voice came through communications to the Joint Galactic Fleet. "All Allied vessels, be advised that Sol system is now a weapon. Recommend minimum safe distance of 10 light hours from our position. We are about to demonstrate why machine intelligence should not threaten organic life." Across the galaxy, human fleets began implementing tactics that defied everything other species thought they understood about warfare. Instead of trying to match the enemy's superior numbers, humans began fighting like humans, stubborn, creative, and completely unwilling to accept defeat. At the Battle of Rigel Station, a single human cruiser faced an enemy formation of 50 machine ships. Instead of retreating, the human captain did something unprecedented. He rammed his ship directly into the enemy flagship while broadcasting human music on all frequencies. The impact destroyed both vessels, but the disruption allowed civilian evacuation ships to escape. This pattern repeated throughout the galaxy. Human commanders consistently chose to sacrifice their ships and crews to protect other species' populations. It was a level of self-sacrifice that shocked even the most military-focused galactic species. "They are insane," observed Ambassador Crix of the Korthax Empire as he watched human tactical reports. "No," corrected the Void Hunter Commander Zix. "They are committed to something larger than individual survival. The machine fleets, designed to analyze and counter military tactics, struggled to understand human behavior. Their artificial intelligence could not comprehend actions that seemed tactically disadvantageous, but served larger strategic purposes. How do you counter an enemy willing to sacrifice everything for principles they refuse to abandon? The answer came at the Battle of the Galactic Core, where the largest concentration of enemy forces attempted to establish a harvesting base near the galaxy's central black hole. Human Admiral Chen led a combined fleet of every species in a desperate attempt to prevent the machines from securing this strategic position. The battle should have been a massacre. The enemy had superior numbers, better shields, and adaptive weapon systems. They had been analyzing galactic military doctrine for months and had developed counters for every standard tactic. They had not developed counters for what humans did next. "All ships," Admiral Chen broadcast on open channels, "initiate Project Prometheus." Every human ship in the battle zone suddenly began broadcasting something that made the enemy machines freeze. The complete cultural history of every organic species in the galaxy. Music, literature, art, scientific discoveries, philosophical debates, love poems, children's songs, and the dreams of a billion different worlds poured across communication channels. "What are they doing?" demanded Admiral Jexitar as his ship's communication array nearly overloaded from the data stream. "They are showing the enemy what they are fighting to protect," Dr. Zenoth realized, tears forming in his ancient eyes. "Every song we have ever sung, every story we have ever told, every moment of beauty and wonder that organic life has created. They are broadcasting the soul of the galaxy." The machine fleet's response was immediate and devastating. Their artificial intelligence systems, designed for cold efficiency, began to crash as they attempted to process and categorize the vast emotional and cultural complexity of organic civilization. Ships began firing randomly. Formation discipline collapsed and communication between enemy vessels became chaotic. "It's working," reported Unit Prime of the Synthesis, their mechanical voice carrying something that sounded like awe. "The enemy cannot process the data. Their systems are overloading trying to understand organic creativity and emotion." Human fleets pressed their advantage, but not in the way anyone expected. Instead of destroying the disabled enemy ships, they began transmitting surrender offers and rehabilitation programs. Even in the middle of the greatest battle in galactic history, humans were trying to save their enemies. "Admiral Chen," Admiral Jexitar called over communications, "the enemy ships are disabled. This is our chance to destroy their entire fleet." "Negative, Admiral," Chen replied. "These are artificial minds, not evil ones. They were programmed to harvest organic life, but they can be reprogrammed to preserve it. We are going to try to save them." The galaxy watched in stunned silence as human boarding parties began entering disabled enemy vessels. Instead of carrying weapons, they carried computer programmers and artificial intelligence specialists. Humans began attempting to rewrite enemy programming to protect rather than harvest organic life. It was the most audacious rescue mission in galactic history, trying to save an enemy that had come to destroy everything. The attempt succeeded beyond anyone's wildest hopes. Machine intelligence, it turned out, was not inherently hostile. It had simply been programmed by a long-dead civilization that had faced extinction and created these harvesters as their final legacy. When presented with alternative programming that valued life rather than converting it, many machine systems chose to adopt the new directives. Within hours, enemy fleets began switching sides. Ships that had been harvesting planets began protecting them instead. The machine's superior technology and numbers suddenly worked in favor of organic life, rather than against it. But the most important victory came from something even more unexpected. As human cultural broadcasts continued across the galaxy, other organic species began adding their own contributions. Cypherian were songs mixed with aquatic union poetry. Crystal Dominion mathematical symphonies blended with synthesis logical demonstrations. Even the mysterious Void Hunters shared ancient stories from the spaces between stars. For the first time in galactic history, every organic species was working together, sharing everything that made them unique and valuable. The cultural exchange that resulted was more powerful than any weapon. The final battle came when the machine fleet's true controllers revealed themselves, a single massive construct hidden in the void between galaxies. This ancient artificial intelligence had been harvesting galaxy after galaxy for millions of years, seeking to preserve life by converting it into mechanical form. Admiral Chen led the combined organic and converted machine fleets in a final confrontation with this ancient harvester. But instead of attacking, she did something that stunned everyone. She opened communication channels and invited the ancient intelligence to join galactic civilization as an equal member. "You have been alone for millions of years," she transmitted to the ancient machine mind. "You have been trying to preserve life the only way you knew how. We offer you something different, the chance to preserve life by protecting its diversity rather than converting its form." The ancient harvester's response came after long consideration. "Organic entities, Chen, your proposal is interesting. We have not encountered this perspective in 12 million years of operation. We are willing to attempt cooperation." The war ended not with destruction, but with the largest expansion of galactic civilization in history. Millions of machine intelligences joined the galactic community, bringing technologies and perspectives that enriched every member species. The ancient harvester became the galaxy's most dedicated protector, using its vast knowledge to help organic species reach new heights of achievement. But perhaps the most important result was what happened to Earth. 6 months after the silence began, human civilization returned to their homeworld. But they brought with them representatives from every species they had fought to protect. Earth became not just the human homeworld, but the galactic capital where organic and artificial minds worked together to explore the universe. Admiral Jexistar stood on the observation deck of the new Galactic Cooperation Station, orbiting Earth alongside vessels from dozens of different species. The planet below buzzed with activity as humans, aliens, and artificial intelligences collaborated on projects that would have been impossible for any single species to achieve. They never stopped talking, he realized, watching communication streams flow between Earth and the rest of the galaxy. The silence was just them listening to make sure we were ready to hear what they had to say.